I remember the first time I did this, it really felt like levitating. It felt like I was flying. And this is an experience most people will go to their grave never experiencing. I'm Martin Schulz. I've been a movement teacher for the last 8 years now. This is the Far Beyond Fitness podcast, where we talk about movement, not just fitness, and its relevance to all of our lives. The topic for today is being strong and fit is not enough. You need to move. Well, before diving into this topic, I just want to clarify a few things. I just introduced myself as a movement teacher. And first I want to clarify, what is a movement teacher to be exact? And how does it actually differentiate from a fitness coach, for example? Well, let's talk about a fitness coach. What does he do? He looks at those parameters like strength, like muscle mass, like fat loss, and this is what he wants to optimize, right? Those one-sided parameters. But as a movement teacher, there's so much that this approach leaves out. For example, you have things like balance, you have things like coordination, you have things like body awareness, body control. And those are also only parameters. You can look at this at a broader perspective. You can look at this in the movement perspective. Having a movement practice, really getting better at movement. That's what we want to teach you as a movement teacher. We don't only want you to go after those parameters, but have those parameters in place, of course. You want to get stronger, you want to get more fit, you want to lose fat, of course. That's all great things to aspire to. But you also should aspire to learn new movements through it. Yeah, to see how can you deal with challenging movements? How can you evolve your skill of learning new skill? So that's what we want to teach. And that's what most fitness coaches don't really look at. There are those primal movement patterns like crawling, jumping, climbing, inverting, like in a handstand, for example, or throwing, even catching a ball. All those are things that if you don't learn them specifically, you can't do them. So what do we see nowadays? We see so many people who look like they can move, but they cannot actually move. They have the body for movement, but they don't have the capabilities to move because they never trained it, goal in mind. And that's why, they have the looks without the performance. And that's a gap that we really want to address. And that's what I'm talking about today. So, what do I mean by movement practice instead of a fitness practice? Let's have a very general example. Let's say pull-ups. You become really good at pull-ups, right? You can do like 10 pull-ups. What would be the fitness approach to progressing after that? It would be probably to do 20 pull-ups, right? That would be the normal approach. As a movement teacher, we don't only go into this doing more or doing higher intensity, but we want you to do more complex movements, to unlock certain new worlds for you, to unlock certain new movement worlds for you. For example, the pull-up. Okay, let's say you can do 10 pull-ups. What can you do with it? The next approach for a movement teacher would be, for example, to teach you to muscle up. Muscle up is pretty known in the fitness world right now through Instagram and stuff. But just to explain for the viewers, it's when you pull yourself up a bar, then transition over the bar, and then do a dip so that you're on top of the bar. So that gives you a new perspective. You're not below the bar anymore, you're on top of the bar. So what can you do there? Before, you didn't have access to go on top of the bar. Now you have. So what does it mean for you? It means it opens up a whole new world for you. It opens up new possibilities to explore, to learn things about your body, to learn new movement, and to experience the world in a different way. A way that you haven't experienced before. And that's something that most people don't really appreciate anymore. We always talk about gratitude, right? Gratitude is a huge talk nowadays. We should be grateful for our family. which is great. We should be grateful for our friends, our loved ones. We should be grateful for our homes. That's all being talked about. But no one really seems to talk about being grateful for your body. You have a body. Now you can move. So you have 2 arms, 2 legs, and what do you use them for? Maybe you walk the stairs on the train station, or maybe type something on the keyboard. And all that we do is really say, what can we do today with what we've been given? We have this body, we can move, so let's use it. Let's move for those who can't. And that's also a great story that I've heard recently about a woman who was born without legs. And she was really inspiring to me. She had a strong upper body. She rope climbed a lot. And when she was asked why she does that, she said, I really feel that I have to move for those who can't. There are so many people out there who can't move. So what we've been given is what we can use. And that's what she said. That's her reason. She is grateful. She is appreciative for what she has. Because tomorrow it might not be there anymore. Tomorrow you might not be able to move anymore. So, yeah, when you have that mindset, then you will have to maintain it. You want to maintain it. There's also, I want to tell a quick story about my first time I learned the straddle press handstand. Straddle press handstand is when you put your arms down and you push yourself up into a handstand, right? So your legs leave the ground and you go up into a handstand. And I remember the first time I did this, it was like, it really felt like levitating. It felt like I was flying. And this is an experience most people will go to their grave never experiencing. And I'm not talking about everyone has to learn straddle press handstand. Not everyone has to do a backflip or splits or something like that. But what I want to say is we don't appreciate these experiences that movement can give you. Experiences that you would never have been able to experience before. And that's all we have today. We all have only experience. Why? Well, everything in the world of physical form is subject to the law of impermanence. What does it mean? Well, everything. Your partner, your spouse, your friends, your house. You have to say goodbye to them at some point. Everything fades. So what's left is the experience you have had with them. It doesn't mean it's the only parameter we should go for, but it's a very important one. Which experiences have you made in this reality? And movement is something that unlocks experiences that you wouldn't have been able to unlock before. And this is really an experience I want to give you, because this experience that I had. I was not an athletic person at school. I was not gifted in sports. It was my worst subject in school, to be honest. But when I did a training program, which really prepared me for movement first in mind, which strengthened my body, strengthened my joints, made me mobile, then I realized, okay, there's so much more that my body is capable of doing that I would have never thought of before. There's so much more that I can experience now in a richer way than I could have thought before. So keep this in mind next time you do your pull-ups, for example. Yeah. And I believe that this is a big part of what life quality is all about. It's freedom and choices. You gain more freedom, and with more freedom you gain more choices. And with those choices, you will have a richer, more versatile life experience. I want to share a point that a mentor of mine shared with me, and it was a really profound one, which I really want you to absorb and think about, which is the following. You could describe life as a big game. And this big game you could you as a game full of the subsequent games. And of those subsequent games, you could also differentiate them in even more subsequent games. So you have this overarching game and those underlining games underneath. For example, you have the game of hygiene. That would be a subsequent game of the game of life. And then there's, well, for example, the game of brushing your teeth, the game of taking a shower, the game of cleaning your house. That could be all called subsequent games of the subsequent game of hygiene. Okay, but now how do you move your toothbrush? Do you move it up and down? Do you move it sideways? Do you move it in a circle? Yeah, this is also a game. So you can go in infinite ways down the road. You can go deeper and deeper games into that. Okay, so let's say we have that. We have many games. But then there are some games that are optional. Some games you don't have to play. Like let's say the game of children. You can decide you have children or you don't. You can play the game career. You can say, okay, I want to go after the direction of career or I don't. But then there are games that you have to play. And one of those games is, for example, the game of health. Either you play the game of health or it plays you. You will either have to invest time in health or you will have to invest time in sickness. There are no other ways. It's a binary equation. So if you know you have to play the game of health, doesn't it make sense to think about how can I play the game of health better, in a better way? Also, another game you have to play, the game of money. I'm sorry, it's not about a conversation about whether it works without money or not. That's a different conversation. I'm talking right now, in this 21st century reality, you will have to play the game of money. You have to learn to deal with it. So also, learn about how you can do better. And then there's a game that I'm mostly concerned with, which is the game of movement. You have to move. In this physical existence, in this body, you have to move. You have no choice. Well, you don't have to do a backflip. You don't have to do the splits. But you have to move. You have to move those limbs. You have to move thoughts. You have to have a posture, whether it's a good or a bad posture. You have to have a posture. So you have to move. You have to walk. So if you have to do those things on a daily basis, doesn't it make sense to think about how well you can do them and how to improve them? So, well, that opens up a new perspective, right? That opens up the perspective that everything is movement. That everything what you do on a daily basis is movement. So think about less about the looks of your body, which are important, which you can address, which I also find important. But it's not the only thing. It's not the only parameter. It's not the only way how you navigate life. And that's really something to keep in mind. So, you have to play the game of movement. I can tell you about my younger years. I didn't invest much time in moving better. All I was concerned with were my intellectual abilities. I was pretty good at school. Yeah, I was good at all those things that involved my mind, so I really relied on my mind. So I knew a lot about the world, but I couldn't really interact with it. I had a bad posture, I had no social skills, I had no ability really as far as movement-related activities are concerned in any way. So, yeah, I could not interact with the world. I was pretty much like the Chinese say, I think they have an idiom, the man who lives inside his head. Yeah, that's what I was. So, later I found out that there was so much that it was missing. That knowing about the world is not enough. You need to learn to interact with it. And this is strongly related to your movement practice and your movement ability. The point that I really want you to think about is to raise your standards. you have limited time and energy. So if you want an aesthetic body, why not train it in a way that makes you aesthetic, but also gives you the freedom to experience more movement freedom in the future? So let's have an example for that. You want to learn the double bodyweight bench press. It's a great goal. So you can invest several years into learning double bodyweight bench press. Or you could take several years and learn, for example, the planche. Planche, for people who don't know, that's like a push-up with your feet in the air. Like your body is horizontal, parallel to the ground. It's a great movement, but it also takes several years. So, after this one route, after learning the bodyweight bench press, what would you have? Well, you would have a double bodyweight bench press. If you went the planche route, you would have bulletproof joints. You would have body control, body awareness, balance on your hands. You would have a new movement that you could use to explore further, to have new movement freedom that opens up a new world for you. Each new learned movement, especially the key movements like the planche, open up whole new worlds for you. And at the same time, you would get a 1.75 times your body weight bench press. So that's something to keep in mind. Where do you invest your time? Where do you invest your energy? And what experiences do you want to have? And that's what I talk about. Raise your standards. Don't only go for one-sided parameters. There's nothing bad about looking good, wanting to look good. There's nothing bad about wanting to be strong. But think about what you want to be able to do with your body. And maybe open up what you can do if you have the right training, if you have the right mindset for that. Another point, which is not often discussed, is that the better you move, the younger you feel. And that's especially true as you get older. That's what I experienced. I can now move better than ever before, so I feel younger than ever before. And this also is strongly linked to life quality. I want to tell a quick story about a woman that I taught that she trained with me and she wanted some personal training. And what I did is I put her down in a squat. I just wanted to squat down. That's a very general way to evaluate how good she has hip health, how good she can move. So I just wanted to see that. I made her squat down and then I said, okay, now I have your range, please come back up. And she tried, but she couldn't get back up. She used all of her force in the legs to get back up, but she could not do it. Then I even came and supported her, used my arm as help and tried to get her back up, but she couldn't do it either. And I'm not saying this to make fun of her. I'm saying this for a certain point. And this point, I want you to tattoo you on the inside of your eyelids, which is the following. She said, now, with this squat, I don't feel like 64 anymore. I feel like 100. That's something that stuck with me. So, your movement quality determines in a big way also your life quality, because it determines the freedom and choices that you have. So think about what you want to be able to do in the future. Maybe you want to be able to run with your children, have a game of tag, but you need a body that is capable of doing that. Maybe you want to climb a tree with your significant other, but you need a body that is able to do that. The thing is, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And it happens now. It doesn't happen tomorrow, it doesn't happen in the next 20 years. It happens now. I see that. Even with 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds, they lose their movement ability if they don't do anything for it. And the truth is, if you have lost it, if you've come to this oh damn, oh shit moment when you've lost it, then you will move mountains just to get a glimpse back of what you once had. Okay, so life quality is strongly linked to movement quality. But not only that, movement variety is the key to longevity. There was a great study that was thrown around in my sports studies. I studied sports for a few years, and which was the following. Seniors were taught how to juggle. Okay, they didn't know anything about juggling, so they were taught. And then they made an EEG of their brain to measure brain activity. So what did they find out? They found out that when they started juggling and they got better at it, the areas of the brain which were activated were not just some, but almost all of them. Their brain lit up like Christmas trees. That's how involved your brain is in learning a new movement. So I can, for example, think of my old math teacher. He wanted to keep her brain healthy. So what she did is she solved some math problems all the time, to keep her brain healthy. But nowadays I don't really agree with that anymore, because mathematics has its applications and it improves your brain function, but there are certain areas only. If you really want to maintain your brain activity, well, then the best choice for you is movement. It involves, if not all, but most of your brain, especially learning new movements. So that's how you keep your brain healthy, by learning new movements. And just because you don't recognize how complex it is for your brain to make all these patterns and learn these new movements, it doesn't mean that the complexity isn't there. Right? Before, for a long time, it was said the smart ones, they go to college and they learn mathematics, they learn sciences. And for the stupid ones, they go do their movement, right? They do sports. But that's not actually true. Just because you don't recognize the enormous complexity and the difficulty that your brain has to go through to learn new movement doesn't mean that it's not there. So keep that in mind if you want to stay healthy. Your brain is plastic. It always evolves. It always adapts. So it also adapts to non-movement. So when we're about the topic of using your brain, I want to make the case, and I'm a big advocate of using your brain more. Use your brain more today. Because what's the reality for most fitness people? Well, for most fitness people, the reality is I go to the gym, I do my curls, switch off the brain, maybe look at the phone, maybe think about what I'm gonna eat tomorrow, or what this evil person said yesterday to me, instead of really being in the moment. So that really severs the connection from brain and body. And that's really what I want you to re-establish, this connection between mind and body. That's the reality is, for most gym bros, they are not really active in mind. But movement forces you. Learning new movement forces you to be active in mind and body. It forces you to make these connections, because otherwise you wouldn't improve in this movement, which in turn keeps your brain healthy as well. It doesn't mean that it's not possible with weight training, and I'm not saying that this is something that can be achieved by weight training, but I'm talking about the reality for most people, which is go to the gym, switch your brain off, do the work, and then be done with it. No brain involvement, no challenge. And challenge is something which keeps you engaged in this game of life. I can tell you about an entrepreneur. He tried to outsource everything, right? He built up his company, got to very huge status with his company, and then he wanted to outsource everything so that he doesn't have to do any work anymore. And he can just chill at the Bahamas, for example. That was his dream. And he worked on that, and he achieved that. And then he was in the Bahamas with his wife, and he was unhappy as hell. Why? Later he recalled, he thought about, okay, why am I unhappy? When was the last time I was happy? Well, it was when I built my business, when I built it all up. And why was that? Because there were challenges. challenges were ever present in this time, and now there are no challenges anymore. So this is a very underestimated part of our reality and what we need for our happiness, which is a constant stream of challenges. And this is something that movement has no shortage of. This is what movement can give you. You always have something to improve. You always have something to move towards. Those challenges are ever present. So, yeah, that which also improves your brain function just as well. It improves your general ability to move. And don't think I cannot move anymore. I'm too old for this. This is not something for me. Well, the truth is why some people learn faster than others is not only because of talent. It's not only because where they come from. It's also a lot related to how much movement they did in the past. The best athletes, and studies show that time after again, is that those who are the best athletes and become elite athletes were the ones who did multiple sports, all different kinds of sports in their youth. So even if you didn't do that much sport in youth, that doesn't mean that you cannot work on your movement ability now. That it means when you do many different sports, if you choose a movement perspective now, you can learn movements much quicker, you can improve quicker, and you will have this general movement ability. Of course, there are certain things you have to adapt to. If you want to do a backflip, you have to do a backflip, for example. This is the specific adaptation. But then there's the skill of learning a new skill. So can you do that? Can you learn a skill? Have you ever invested time in that? And how does it carry over to your everyday life? Because you have to adapt. You always have to adapt. You always have to learn. You have to adapt to new circumstances, to ever-changing reality. We live in this matrix of an ever-changing reality. So learning is not optional. So the question again, if this is optional, is how good can you do it? How good can you learn a new skill? So there's also something that movement can give you. Well, what now? You understood the importance of learning to move, and you want to move better through this life. Well, how do you do that? The first thing I would recommend you to do is find the right teacher for the right task. Find someone who you can trust and who teaches you how to move better. So for example, join a local gymnastics gym. Join a BJJ class. Do dancing. Do parkour. Do whatever you can in your area. And then you will find your individual weaknesses that prevent you from more movement freedom in the future. And you can work from that point. Alternatively, if you ever wanted a training program that gives you an aesthetic body and that can perform, which prepares you for the life quality and the freedom that can be given to you just by moving your body freely through space, then I encourage you to come to us. What we will do is we will prepare your body for more movement freedom in the future. So we will make your body strong in all the major joints, in all the major movement planes. For example, push-up strength is not the same as dip strength. It's different movement planes, therefore it requires different strength to be developed, although it's both pushing. You will get awesomely flexible, awesomely mobile in all the major joints. You will get bulletproof joints, joints that can take impact, so that you can prevent the major injuries in the future. All the while learning interesting, fun skills like the handstand, like the back lever, like the muscle up. So if you're interested in that, go to our website far-beyond-fitness.com or just click in the description of wherever you're watching right now. If it's a YouTube video you're watching, there will be a link in the description. If you enjoy this podcast, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe on Spotify or on Apple. On On Spotify and on Apple, you also have the opportunity to leave us an up to 5-star review. If you have any suggestions about topics you want to have covered or any questions, please leave a comment underneath this YouTube video. Thank you.